Hey YouTube, Bearded Bristol here, and I am just a guy talking and painting. I decided to give this a little test drive, see how it works out, but years and years ago, back in my college days, pretty much every weeknight, there was a group of us that would gather in the local art room at the college, and we would sit there for hours and tell stories and work on our art and built some really fantastic friendships and had some great times. That said, painting's very therapeutic, right? At least for me. Some people may find it intensely frustrating. Some people just, may not have the taste for it all. And I understand that. But I'm going to take this opportunity and we're just going to play around a little bit. This will be part tutorial, part life philosophy, part storytelling. We'll just see where it goes. So join me for a little while. I got a bit of scotch here. Probably won't touch it much, but nevertheless, I like to have it at hand for when you make those happy accidents. So we're going to get started here. I've got a snow scene that I shot a photo of a couple of weeks ago, and I've never painted snow before, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to just do a little test driving with stuff and see where we end up. And I've already sprayed down the paper, and it's 120-pound cold press paper, which basically just means there's some additional texture to it over, say, a hot press paper. And I've also, as you can tell, I've mixed up some color here so that we can just jump right in and get started. I wetted the paper down because I do want just a little bit of a color bleed throughout this to help create that depth of field. One of the harder things to do within watercolors, at least in my opinion, is to get depth of field, because a lot of times we just want to, first of all, we just want to jump in and we want to paint. But the amount of water you use will increase the amount of bleed within the paper. And so if you have everything at a sharp focus, you don't want to use any water or very, very little as far as pre-treating the canvas or the paper in this case. And as I noted, I've already mixed up some color, and it's a phthalo blue, and that starts with a P, by the way. So it's phthalo blue, but already mixed some of that up with a little bit of black, and you can see that the color is pretty intense. And that's one of the tricks within watercolor painting, is you can already see with those first brush strokes that I made that the color is starting to fade some. And that's okay. I've already kind of pre-tested this to make sure I had the color pretty much where I want it. So that gives me the ability, like I said, to just dive in so that you don't have to sit there and watch me fumble so much, because I am prone to the occasional fumble. One of the interesting pieces of watercolor painting, for those who are not familiar with the medium, is that it is best to work from light to dark. And so, as I already noted, I've done, some of the groundwork here. And honestly, I will probably be going back in and adding some lighter blues around this. But as you can see, I've already kind of swept in some small snowdrifts. And now we're just kind of painting in some blue shadow for the twigs and sticks and whatnot that are sticking outside of the snow. This scene, very indicative of a Midwest winter by my estimation. Midwest winters are not always the pretty fluffy snow that shows up on postcards and in Hallmark movies and whatnot, we have a tendency to get really dry, cold, windy snow. And what that amounts to is a lot of blowing and drifting. Um, and it's very cold and dry snow oftentimes. So it's like I said, not the pretty fluffy stuff that we like to see on our Christmas movies. But if you're from the Midwest, you're used to it, and you actually kind of come to enjoy certain parts of it. I would make this photo as a case in point to that. Um, I was actually just out driving the countryside and kind of looked out my window. The twigs here that are sketched out, and they are twigs, these are actually only about 4 inches high in reality. That was part of the charm of this shot. Part of what caught my eye was just the simple fact that in the midst of this hard, cold winter, we still have some signs of life, some signs of resilience within Mother Nature. Very hard to beat her back, as you're all very aware. But just the subtle snow drifts caught my attention. They're again 3 to 4 inches high in all reality. But they become very picturesque and larger than life when you focus in on them, which is what this painting is seeking to do. And again, we'll just have to wait and see how this all lines up in the end. And you can see, so you noticed that I sprayed down the paper again. You do, depending on how slow you work, and I tend to be a slower painter, you may have to frequently spray your paper down. And as you noticed when I did that, it makes the colors much more vibrant. Both good and bad there, because sometimes then it's difficult to really understand the color that your piece, that the finished pigments are going to dry to. That's why you do test strips and the like. You can't see it, but off to the left here, I have 2 strips of paper that have some test coloration on them, so that I have a pretty good idea that when this dries, it's going to be the color that I'm looking for. And a lot of watercolor is just really feeling the piece out. And that probably sounds a little Bob Ross-like, and I apologize for that. But it's a very artistic way of looking at things. I do have a photo here on my laptop next to me that I'm kind of working from. So when you see me pause, I'm both looking at the paper and also referencing that image on the computer. And then spray down even just a little bit more and notice how those colors just took another kind of pop. And you can see some increased bleeding here, so I don't want to add probably any additional water to this, at least not for some time. But we'll just continue to kind of work these shadow areas and try to get them kind of to where I'm at a place where I'm happy. So I do have a bachelor's degree in art, but that does not make me an artist. Artist is so much a feeling and an understanding of, the medium and the subject matter and all of that. And I am just now, over the last year and a half, getting back into art in a serious sense. After being a graphic artist and marketing professional for a number of years, I found myself, just generally speaking, kind of burnt out. A lot of creative energy went into that day-to-day job. And what that amounted to is, on the weekends and on the evenings when I might have had an opportunity to do something like this, I just simply did not have the energy or the interest. And so my talents, such as they are, have been sitting idly by for a very long time. With the pandemic, of course, we had to make a lot of changes in our lives. Some good, some bad, both internal and external. And, we had to relearn some things. And one of the things that I relearned is that I actually kind of like staying home and being by myself. I actually rediscovered my love of painting through all of that pandemic nonsense. And I don't want to pretend that it is over, but I do feel like we're coming towards the end of much of that, at least, from a lockdown and a behind closed doors. But I did take advantage of that time to kind of reinvent myself and to rediscover the love that I had for painting and creating. And now I'm trying to share some of that with you. And hopefully, if you're still watching, you're finding some value in what I'm creating here, both from an artistic sense, but also just from a personal and communicative sense. I've been to a lot of art galleries over the years, and one of the things that you see it in movies, of course, too, is other people interpreting what the artist means by a work of art. And nothing wrong with that. That's part of the art thing. It means different things to different people, as it's supposed to. But I always kind of chuckled at, especially when you have a posthumous artist, you can't go back to them and verify whether or not this is what they actually meant. And so, like I say, I get kind of a chuckle out of the idea that we can try to interpret the artist's work for them. So this actually gives me an opportunity to tell you exactly what the work means to me, and hopefully build a level of engagement and interest in the process and what this artistic endeavor, generally speaking, looks like. And as you can see at this point, I'm just kind of dabbling some color in here and there. I'm not even referencing the photo at this point. I feel like I have a sense for where the color needs to go. And again, that's just part of practice and being fastidious when I'm out actually just taking the photos. I examined the landscape around this photo and noted how kind of the shadows went, and you can see we've got long wavy shadows that bend with the drifts of the snow. And this was a shot in late afternoon, and as I say, this was a particularly cold and dry snow. And it's the weeds sticking out. They are obviously dead for the winter time or dormant. um, but they'll come back. And, we as humans, we're very strong people, but, from a Midwest standpoint, we're used to hard winters, and we may not like them, but we'll bounce back. And this painting is a little bit reminiscent of that for me, in that it's a cold, hard scene. It also has a fair amount of beauty within it, and the snow drifts. I think everybody likes what a good snow looks like. I know I enjoy looking at them, not always being out in them necessarily. But the beauty of the fresh snow, married with just kind of the harshness of the dead weeds, and the fact that they're resilient and upright even though there's no longer any color to them. They are dormant and dead for the winter time. So it's a little bit of a juxtaposition, but it's also a little bit of a reminder that everything will come back. Everything will circle back around again. And that's the weeds will come back, much to our chagrin. Our freedom ultimately should come back over time as we, cross various boundaries within the pandemic. So there's some depth here. There's some meaning beyond just a pretty picture of dead weeds in snow, and or dead plants. There's probably some wildflowers mixed in amongst all of this too. But I'm gonna shut up for a minute or two here, and just gonna paint and kind of develop these shadows a little bit. I am not, as I said before, I am not Bob Ross. I do not have the acuity that many of the lifelong artists have out there. So it does take me some time. And that's, enjoying the journey and self-discovery and learning new tricks within the medium is what I really enjoy. I said I was going to shut up for a minute, and I'm clearly still talking. But, it is a journey kind of self-discovery, and when you do something correct for the first time and you feel it really come together, there's such a feeling of accomplishment within that, and that's what keeps many artists, keeps me coming back in particular, is being able to attain that feeling and feel like, wow, I have mastered, or I learned a new trick with the canvas, or with, in this case, the paper. I used to paint a lot with oils. So when I say canvas, it's oftentimes referencing back to the good old days when I did much more oil and much less watercolor. You're probably also noticing that the paper is starting to wave. Apologize for the gratuitous Zepp plug there. Nice spray bottle though. But the paper is starting to get a little wavy on me, and that's okay. Some of that will smooth out. Some of it will remain behind. But once you finish the piece, take the tape off, it will flatten out some more, and then obviously when you put it behind glass in a frame, you can pretty well take care of the rest of it. So it used to really bother me that the paper would get wavy, and I tried to avoid it until I just kind of came to understand that's one of the quote-unquote lesser joys of, oh goodness, there we go. I was a smart guy and I set a timer. That's right, so that I did not drone on impossibly long. Anyway, I'm gonna start to wrap this up now, but you can hopefully see there's been quite a little progress, and I think, much of it for the positive. Bob Ross liked to refer to his happy accidents. I don't have happy accidents. I have kind of uh-oh moments, where you have to scramble and find how to fix something very quickly, hopefully before the paint dries, because after it's dry, it becomes much more difficult to fix. But I am going to wrap this up. Anyway, here we go. Now it's time for that scotch. I will continue painting even past the stop button on the recordings here. But like I say, this is something new for me. It's not meant to necessarily be a tutorial because I don't feel I have the capacity at this stage to tutor anyone on anything other than possibly patience. But the one little nugget that I want to leave you all with is to remember the biggest barrier to success is fear, and sloth for that matter. I think we all have a tendency to get lazy from time to time, but I think a lot of that laziness is oftentimes driven by fear. And what I mean by that is it's awfully easy to put something off until tomorrow if we're scared to begin. We have trepidations on a number of things, whatever that might be. From, what if I'm no good? What are my friends and family going to think? What if I can't afford it? What if, I just really don't enjoy it? So we put these mental hurdles up in front of ourselves. And I'm here to tell you that that's the only way you're going to be successful is to clear those hurdles, whether you're jumping them or simply moving them out of the way. And so that's even why, to a degree, I started doing this video, as it were. Is I felt I can communicate pretty well, and I think people just kind of have a catharsis when it comes to watching art. So I'm hoping the combination of the two is something you all enjoy. I'm going to settle back with a pipe, do some additional painting, and we'll hopefully see you again in a week. But in the meantime, feel free to follow me on Instagram, Bearded Bristol, and have a great weekend and create something. It doesn't have to be art, just create something. Use your hands, use your brain, use your feet if that's what gets you going. It doesn't really matter to me, but get out there and create something, have some fun. Y'all take care.